Hugh, it's Ryan. I'm excited. Today is the day. I can't believe I'm the subject. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but exciting as well. I've never actually asked you, do you pay your guests? Have you been paying the guests like Missy and Jack Watts and stuff? Are they getting a fee? I don't know. I just think because I'm the guest today, I just thought I'd just double check. Totally fine if it's for free, like absolutely. But I just thought, if there is a fee involved, I thought I should just check. I'll tell you what. I'll text you my BSB and account number, and if there's a fee, there's a fee. If not, we'll talk about it. But just thought I'd just triple check that before we get into this. So can't wait though. Can't wait. I'll see you soon. It's Ryan Shelton.
To call back, press 2 to replay this.
We're all imperfect, and on this podcast, I'll be chatting with a variety of interesting people who are willing to make themselves vulnerable by sharing their own struggles and imperfections.
Then we'll discuss the invaluable takeaways we can all apply to our own imperfect lives.
I'm Hugh Van Cuylenberg from the Resilience Project.
And I'm Ryan Shelton from My Mum. And this is The Imperfects.
Oh, so we're on, are we?
Yeah, this is live.
This is live. Okay, we've started.
Yeah, live streaming.
Okay.
Thought it was the best, safest way to do this one.
We haven't, out of all the episodes we've done so far, we haven't had one proper official start to the episode. It's always been a really awkward. Have you noticed that? I don't know if you've listened back to them. They're very awkward starts.
Yeah. Well, it's because this is probably going to be on.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be the start of it.
So, terrific feedback from Claire's episode, Claire Bowditch.
I mean, not surprisingly, considering how she spoke and the story she told. People I've spoken to were pretty blown away by it. Yeah,
and I know from the feedback we've got, it has helped so many people. So, a very big shout out to Claire Bowditch, who sent me...
It is Bowditch.
Well, she sent me a voicemail. She sent me a little recorded thing of her explaining that she's done a bit of research. She's asked around, and it's definitely Claire Bowditch.
Because the contention last episode, if you didn't hear, was whether it was Bowditch or Bowditch. Yeah. And us being the professional hosts that we are, weren't prepared and didn't know.
Well, it was I put my hand up. That's my fault. But anyway,
it's Bowditch.
It is.
Okay.
It is, yes.
Great. So, good to know.
Yes.
Very good to know. Now, how's your You've had a little bit of a limp.
I have.
I'm worried for you.
Well, as you know, I have a very strange hobby for a 39-year-old man. I compete every weekend in athletics.
Asking for trouble.
I know. I do 400 metres, so I shouldn't be surprised that I've torn my hamstring. But it happened because I think, because there's no, I have to compete against 20, 21. Every weekend I'm running against 20, 21, 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
They always look at me going, what's that old man doing here?
Yeah.
And I'm a very, because I'm old, it's very hard to get out of the blocks quickly.
You're only 39.
I just compared to, yeah.
You're not old.
Well, just compared to a 21-year-old in his prime.
Yes.
I'm just a bit slow for the 400 metres. For the first 100 metres, I'm very slow. I just can't. But in fact, there was a race the other night there was actually a commentator commentating our race over the speakers.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and it just added. I just got
my name,
nervous.
Calling.
Yeah, I knew everyone's names.
That's huge.
Yeah, but how's this?
That's
say?
Okay, yeah.
This is what I heard. This is what I heard him say though. So the gun goes off. This isn't when I tore my hamstring.
Oh no, Claire Bowditch wasn't racing. Oh, is it Bowditch? Hard to know. Right next to Van Cycling Bird.
Oh dear.
Sorry. Yep.
No, he'd done his homework. He knew my name because I'm the first name that he called. So the gun goes off, right? And it was quite a fast heat that I was in. And this is the first thing I heard. So the gun goes off, I look up, I'm running, and this is all I heard. He goes, and they're away. Van Cuylenberg's been left for dead.
Old man Cuylenberg.
That was the first year I was so flat. Anyway.
He was very proud of himself that he remembered the pronunciation of
I think
name.
he just wanted to get my name out early just to give it a run. But
yeah.
Anyway.
That's
I've been doing a lot of work on my starts and I've been trying to, from that scarring, that emotional and mental scarring I've got from this commentator. Anyway, fast forward a few weeks and I've got my meet. It's out in an AS track and Penny, my wife, can't come. She's away, so I had to look after Benji. So I called my dad and said, Dad, would you be able to come and watch and look after Benji while I run? Because he's only 3, he can't sit there by himself. And Dad said, no worries. And Dad hasn't come to watch me run ever, because why would you? It's a strange thing to come and watch.
Yeah, and what do you care? Parents' approval? Who cares?
Yeah.
No big
Dad's
deal,
never
Dad.
come.
Oh, you're sitting there, you're watching me. Oh, yeah, thumbs up. Who cares? I don't care. I'd do it without you. But you're here. Great. Cool. Yeah, I guess it means a bit.
So the Dad and Benji are sitting there watching, and I'm thinking, this is actually quite nice. I look up, the starter's ready, and I'm on the blocks. And I sort of look up, and I saw him out the corner of my eye. I was like, this is really nice. And the gun goes, and I was like, get a good start. And I felt like I'm flying. First 100, I was like, I feel good. I'm so happy Dad's come to watch this one.
Yeah.
I'm off to a flyer.
Yeah.
And 100 metres in, I felt this, like just something wasn't right with my hamstring. And I went, oh, something feels funny. But then this thought came into my head was, no, Dad's come to watch. He's driven an hour to get here. I'm not going to stop. And so I kept going.
Work through it.
I kept going. At 300 metres in, I felt like someone had shot me in the back of the leg, and I'd done my hamstring properly. And anyway. So I'm in agony.
Well, I hope his father isn't watching this. He would not be proud.
Hopefully the commentator wasn't there, because he would have loved that. I reckon it was the same commentator. But anyway, so after the race, I went and got ice on it, and I hobbled over to Dad and Benji. And I was sitting down, and Dad was saying, oh, that's no good or whatever. And he said, and I said, yeah, I know it's quite painful. And Dad said, yeah, I could tell something was wrong the second the gun went off. That was a very slow. He goes, Dad goes, that was a very sluggish start.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
He said, so you did it right at the start? I went, yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
as the gun went, really.
As I got out of bed this morning. Yeah, but I still ran like a hero.
Anyway, so I'm now, hobbling around the place with a bung hamstring, but that's okay.
Feel for you.
Yeah, when you run a company called the Resilience Project, you can't
You can never stop.
stop. That's right.
All right, okay.
So if we can park my hamstring for a little bit.
Yes.
We're not here to talk about my hamstring. How are you feeling about today's episode? Because I sort of sense you are a little bit, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but perhaps a bit on edge.
I was just hoping I could pull out. Are we definitely doing that today? We're definitely doing it. Yeah. All good. Yeah.
Look, it's totally up to you. I won't stop you pulling out, but I would love to go through with it, because I do know your story for 2 reasons. It's a story that I find really inspiring, and I think it's a story that will help a lot of people, which I'm really excited about sharing today. But before we do that, I think it might be worthwhile just sort of I think most people will know your story, what you do, but for those who don't, it might be an idea just to, if I can quickly catch them up. So you are a comedian, you're a writer, you're a producer, a performer on TV. You have a production company with Hamish and Andy. You've just produced their Perfect Holiday. You produce all their TV shows. Well done for that, by the way. It's very good.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Thanks for watching.
I've really enjoyed it. But I think what would be really helpful today is if we could sort of talk about your journey, I suppose, what got you to the point where you're doing all this wonderful stuff, which is what I knew about you from the outside. Before we first caught up, all I knew was all the stuff we see from the outside, all the incredible stuff you've achieved. But how you got there might be really interesting for people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll try and keep it brief, because really it's what I've learnt more recently about myself and my purpose that I want to talk about today. But essentially, like, going back, so Hamish and I, we met in high school and became like best friends instantly. We would like watch Monty Python all night together. We acted in the school plays together, making sketches and films with Tim Bartley, who's also now a member of...
Please tell me there's footage of that somewhere.
Oh, yeah, there is somewhere
in
a deep vault buried hundreds of meters underground, which no one will ever say. Yeah, and then so Tim Bartley as well, who is now part of Radio Karate. The 3 of us went to high school together. And my childhood was good. Like, it was really... I had great family, awesome friends, good, like, happy school life. Like, it was all really good. And then after that, we all went off to uni and did our thing. You know, I met new friends who didn't live in Melbourne's Bayside area, which was really scary, but exciting. You know, different. Well, the hair's a bit longer. So that was great. And then while I was at uni, and then Hamish went to Melbourne Uni, and he met Andy there, and we all just became really close friends, like pretty instantly, because Andy was doing the same sort of stuff. He was acting in school plays and making sketches, all that sort of stuff. So we joined forces, and we made a show on Channel 31, which is community TV in Victoria, which was so fun. And then at the same time as that, while we were making this show on Channel 31, Hames and Andy started doing stand-up together and started doing a little bit of radio together, and then eventually we all got jobs based on the Channel 31 show we made. We all got jobs at Channel 7 on this new sketch show, which was just unbelievable. Like my first paid, all of our first paid TV jobs, and I guess that kind of kick-started our career. At that show, I met Chris Lilly, and who's now still really good. I'm really good friends with, and on that show, and then he asked me to come and help him write this show that he was making, which ended up being We Can Be Heroes.
One of the greatest shows maybe ever.
Well, even though I worked on it, I agree. Yeah. He's very good. So, and then after that, I'm just trying to roll through this, so we don't hold up too much. But a year later, I got like a writing job on Rove, which was one of my favourite shows when it was on. I just loved it. So we all got jobs on Rove, and then eventually I got my own segment. For the last sort of 2 years of that show, I had my own segment on Rove. I did this thing called Investigationing and Philosophizationing, which was just great. And
I remember watching it. I was a very big fan.
Thanks. And then at the same time, I got a full-time radio gig on Nova as well. Did the drive shift. It was called Ryan, Monty and Whipper, as you'll know, as you remember.
I didn't remember.
Yeah, I know you didn't remember the other day. But what was weird is that we were up against Hamish and Andy which was really strange. But the thing I was really working towards, like since I was a teenager, really was just getting my own TV show. That had just always been my goal, like write, create, and star in my own TV show. That was the dream. And so then we made Hamish and Andy's Gap Year for 4 years, 2 seasons of True Story. And
at some point you did your own series on Channel 4 in the UK, is that right?
Yeah, I did a web series, called How to Life, Still on YouTube, you can still watch it. Yeah.
And now other countries are also making versions of True Story as well, so other countries have purchased
the format.
Amazing.
So that's really good. And anyway, so recently we made Hamish and Andy's Perfect Holiday, like you said, on Channel 9, and throw in a few weird Instagram videos along the way, and that basically brings us up to now.
So, like I've said a few times in this podcast, we first met in a cafe. I bailed you up unashamedly, but we weren't really friends. I suppose, from that point we just said g'day and had a really nice chat. But it was really sort of last year, about a year ago, you got in touch after we hadn't chatted for 4 years, where I bailed you up in a cafe. I took a photo of you. Well, sorry, with you.
Yeah, yes.
Posted that, which was sort of had each other's details, kind of, but not really. And we didn't see or hear from each other for another. Well, you reached out 4 years later.
Yes, I think it was three or 4 years later.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years later, you got in touch, and we started catching up quite regularly. It was last summer holiday, so a year ago we were catching up heaps.
Yeah,
it was great. And I can't remember why. It came up, but you told me about, I suppose, more of the internal stuff that was going on for you sort of emotionally throughout that journey. I think I was just sort of peppering you with questions about the shows you've done because I'm such a big fan. And you started to tell me what was going on inside for you as opposed to what we could all see happening from the outside. And it was quite big for me because I'm like, God, imagine you've done all that stuff. Life must just be perfect. And then you kind of told me that, well, it hasn't actually been perfect. And you kind of told me your story.
Well, so the other episode, there was Erin Deering, who spoke a few episodes ago, and she was talking about how when she was at her peak of, not that I can compare my career to Erin's at all, it's very different, but, relatively speaking, she was talking about when she was at her most successful and they were making all that money, and she felt ashamed to say that she wasn't 100% happy. Now, I'm lucky that I've never, luckily, at this point, suffered from any sort of depression or any sort of mental ill health like that. But there's certainly, like anyone, everything is not as it seems all the time. And even though I've had incredible opportunities and done amazing things that I'm really, really proud of and feel really fortunate to be able to do it, it's that feeling of like, yeah, but I don't have that. There's always that thing that you wish you had, which you feel like, yeah, but I don't think I'll be happy until I have that thing. And for me, it's always been my own TV show. Like for as long as I can remember, I think because I used to watch shows that were, made by people who, probably start going back to Seinfeld, where it's like you got Jerry Seinfeld, who's got his own show. He's a comedian, he's a writer, he's the star. And then there's been countless more. I love those shows. And I've always held those shows up as the thing that I think I won't be satisfied and I won't feel like this whole thing is complete until I have that show.
Because you came to that realisation, I think you were having dinner with your partner in Ballarat or something, and one day and it just hit you.
I mean, I think for years I've been interested in, I did a segment on Rove called Philosophizationing. So I've always been interested in philosophical subjects and things, but I've never really had not a deep understanding of it or interest in it until the last couple of years. And yeah, I was at dinner with my girlfriend Jam, and I started just thinking about like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I'd never really analysed it like that before. I'd never really thought about it. And then I tried to kind of really put my finger on what am I really trying to get? If I'm honest with myself, what am I really trying to achieve here? And yes, it was I want to get my own show, but like there's something deeper than that. And the thing that I realized when I was honest with myself is I realized that really what I'm trying to do like the best case scenario, if I get everything that I really want, is I want to win the Emmy for like best TV show, and I want to be on the front page of Variety, hailed as like the funniest man on earth. Like in that moment, I was like, that is like, it sounds gross saying it out loud, but that's what I was probably wanting out of my life.
As in, you were saying to yourself, if that happens, then I feel happy.
Then I'll be happy. That will complete the journey.
Despite the fact you were living your dream at that time.
Despite the fact that I was doing great things but I still didn't have that kind of my own show.
Sorry, I should have said, despite the fact you're living your childhood dream of doing comedy.
Yeah, I was doing all this great stuff, but I still didn't have the kind of the golden thing that I held so high. And when I thought about that, when I thought about the fact that, oh shit, I'm doing all this work and I'm spending all this time trying to get to that. And so then I sort of thought, and I'm saying all this to Jam at dinner, I'm just speaking like this while my miso soup was getting cold. And I was like, and so then I visualized like, okay, I imagined myself on the stage at the Emmys and tried to imagine that's happened. Tried to think about how that would feel. So then I really thought about it. I was like, okay, I've won the award. Everyone thinks I'm brilliant. I'm the next Will Ferrell, whatever. It's all happened for me. Everything's gone right. And then I was like, okay, well, how do you feel about that? And then I realized I don't really care. Like I didn't care that I had that. It was like it made no difference to me. And then I was like, well, that's not good. Like, that's not good. I've spent so many years stressing, working hard, writing, gone through, like pushed friendships, working with people that you're really close with is often hard. I mean, 90% great, but you go through really tough times. And I was like, well, what the hell am I doing if the end goal, if the best case scenario is something that I don't even really care about? So in that moment, I was kind of panicked a bit because I was like, well,
what am I doing?
What am I doing? And so in that moment, one of the first things I thought about you and about the time that you came up to me in that cafe. We'd never met before.
It was 4 years.
4 years before that night. And because you came up to me in that cafe and just introduced yourself. And I think I've said this before. Have I said this before on the podcast? I don't know. Anyway, you said to me, hey, you know, I'm Hugh and blah, blah, blah. And you said, I really like your work. And then you said, you explained what you did. You explained you did these talks for the Resilience Project. And I was really interested. I was like, oh, wow. And then you said, and sometimes when I do these talks, you know, in the morning I'll be feeling a bit down, or I'll be feeling, you know, I just don't feel like doing a talk, and I need to pick me up, or I need to feel happier to be able to get to the energy level that you need to be to do those talks. And you said, you said, when I'm feeling down like that, I'll go to your Instagram page and I'll watch your videos, and then I'll feel happy.
Yep.
And then I can do a good job. And when you said that to me at the time, I sort of took that on. I was like, I thought that's really lovely. Thanks so much. That's a really nice thing to say. But I kind of just, and I remembered it, but I just didn't really think much more of it. But in that moment, 4 years later, when I was like, what the hell am I doing this for? What am I doing? That was the thing. I was like, well, if just a little video that I do on Instagram can make that guy who's doing these amazing talks, helping so many people, if what I'm doing is making him happy so he can help all those people, I was like, well, that's something. Like that felt right all of a sudden. I was like, well, that's a cool thing. And then I'm pretty sure either that night or the next day, I then messaged you on Instagram, slid into your DMs.
You did.
And,
Very welcome slide.
Yeah, just slid right in, and I just felt like I had to just catch up with you and talk to you. And I don't really know what I was going to talk about, but I think I just needed to make sense of what was going on in my head and talk to someone that would understand, and I don't know. So then meeting up with you was just amazing, because it's of course I could talk to Jam about it, but I think I just thought because you were working in this space that you would know what to say, or you would give me advice or point me in the right direction, or I don't know. I don't
think I did any of that. I think I just listened from memory.
No, you did. You did. You told me about Agassi's book.
Yes. Yep.
So Andre Agassi's book, Open, you told me about that. And you told me to read that, and that was like incredible. And I read that so fast, and his story is amazing, and it's sort of different but similar themes, where you know he sacrificed his entire life to win a Grand Slam, and then when he wins one, it means nothing to him. So you put me onto that, and then the other thing that you did was you said you talked about this guy Ben Crow. So we've mentioned Ben on the podcast before, but you can probably explain who Ben is better than me.
Ben Crow, in a nutshell, he's my mentor, first of all, which I'm very lucky to have, because he mentors. I still don't understand how this has happened. It's still very confusing to me.
Go on, list the names.
He mentors Kobe Bryant, Andre Agassi, I think Jim Carrey, CEO of Facebook.
I think Angelina Jolie, he did for a bit as well, didn't he? Did
really?
Some work with her, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. Who else? And then in Australia, well, me. I don't quite understand how that's happened, but I'm very lucky to have him. And he was a former head. I think he was the director of marketing for Nike in the early 2000s, maybe the 90s, over in the United States. And he's the one who got Nike to tell a story rather than to sell a product, I think. Mm-hmm. And he's been extraordinary for me. Like the first time we caught up, we had 2 minutes together, and we had a lot more than that. But in the first 2 minutes, he had opened my eyes to something pretty incredible about my own story, which we can talk about another time. But I remember saying to you, I was giving you some wise, not counsel or advice, but I was just telling you some stuff, and you went, "That's amazing." And I said, "Oh, well, that's not me speaking. That's a guy who mentors me, Ben Crow." And interestingly enough, you said to me, "Oh, I think Hamish Blake would love to chat to him."
Because you told me all the list of people that he works with, and I was like, not that Hamish necessarily needs counsel or anything, but I was just like, well, Hamish is a very curious person, curious mind. Like, I wonder if he'd catch up with Hamish. Can you ask him? Is what I said to you. And so then you went and spoke to Ben.
Yeah. So I ran it by Ben and just said, mates with this guy called Ryan Shelton, and he's best mates with Hamish Blake, and he thought Hamish might like to meet you. Is that, would you be okay to do that? Because he is the busiest man I know. So I asked him, and I was a bit nervous about it, and he paused for a bit and he said, "Does your mate Ryan want to meet with me?" And I said, "No, he did say Hamish." He said, "Yeah, I know he said that, but it sounds like from the conversations you guys are having and the areas that you're going with your conversation, it sounds like he wants to chat with me." And I said, Oh, yeah, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And so I came back to you and said, "Do you want to meet him?" And you were pumped. And you said yes.
Well,
and it was huge for you.
It was
huge.
because and this plays right into what I've sort of discovered about myself in the last year or two. When he said that, it was almost like, well, my initial reaction was like, why would he want to? Why I'm not worthy enough to meet with someone like him? Like Hamish should meet him, but not me. That's genuinely what I believed in that moment. But of course, I was like, oh my God, I'd love to. So then I met up with Ben, and he's obviously he's incredible. I sort of told him my story and what I was sort of grappling with, the same thing I've just sort of spoken about. And he told me about a couple of things. He talked to me about purpose, and that everyone should have a purpose statement essentially for their life. And he explained the difference between your purpose and a goal. And my goal at once upon a time was to have my own TV show,
Be the funniest man alive.
Yep. But I think what he helped me understand is that that's not a purpose, that's a goal. And so he said, okay, have a think about what your purpose will be. And he sent me gave me a link on a little TED Talk to watch, which helps you figure out your purpose. And we can definitely put that link it's really helpful. We always forget to put links on, but we should definitely put a link.
We say we will, on. We never do it.
Yeah. And then the other thing he talked to me about was he introduced me to, not personally, but introduced me to Brené Brown. So Brené Brown, who we've mentioned before, she calls herself a shame and vulnerability researcher. And Ben encouraged me to think about what my shame was in my life.
Which is a very confronting thing to be asked to do, because your initial thing is, I think for a lot of people, I don't have shame, I'm fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did think that. I was like, I can understand how some people would have shame, but I don't have shame. Like, I don't have any, I'm not ashamed of anything. Like, I didn't really understand it. But he encouraged me to think about shame and explained to me a little bit about it. And essentially the way he explained it, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but shame is essentially the story that you tell yourself about yourself, which is not true, but it's probably been born from something that happened to you in your past, like a bit of, whether it's trauma or maybe you were bullied in some way or whatever it is, like something's happened. And from that event or those experiences, you've then told yourself this thing about yourself, which is not true, but it is now your identity and has now just become the truth that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I think I'm pretty well adjusted. Like I'm okay. Like good family. Like never bullied. But then I got in the car after meeting with him, and I started thinking about it more. And as I tend to do, I talk to myself on my voice memos.
Yeah.
On my phone to sort of think about ideas and things. And I started thinking about it, and pretty quickly I kind of people listening might have already put the pieces together, but the simple fact that I didn't think I was worthy enough to even meet with Ben sort of made me realize that I think the shame that I realized I had is that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be the person that I want to be, or not worthy enough to be the person I want that I want to be. So
what's happened in your life that has made you believe that then?
Well, I thought about that, and I sort of put it, and this is a really weird thing to talk about, because I've never really spoken about this with really many people, hardly anyone, maybe a small handful of people. The experience of going from from school, like from high school, where we're mucking around, making TV shows, like making sketches, and Hamish and I doing stuff together, and we're best mates, to then going from that, where we're just making stuff for fun on radio at uni and community TV. And then at some point around there, Hames and Andy started doing more and more stuff together. And they started, they found this chemistry that they had together, which was just this undeniable chemistry. And I think certainly probably at the time I probably was a bit like, maybe a bit jealous, really. And this was not due to anything that they were doing. It's not like they were like leaving me out, or like we were all doing stuff together. But I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit envious of their connection that they had. And not that Hamish and I weren't as good. We were still really close friends, just as close as we always were. But their kind of comedic connection that they had was just, undeniable. But even looking back at myself now, I probably didn't want to acknowledge that, because I was fearful of what that would mean for me. I was like, am I going to be left behind? They were so good together so quickly that it was sort of just happened so fast. Was
there a point where someone had to say to you, by the way, we're going to go and do radio together?
No, and I think at the time I probably thought, well, that should have happened. But now looking back on it, having kind of come out the other side, it's like, well, they're just trying to make it work for themselves. Like they're just as anyone would be. I'm sure if Andy and I had this like unbelievable chemistry and it just clicked, I'd be like, great, okay, this is happening. And it's like, oh, cool, Hames is here, we'll still do stuff together. But then as soon as I won't talk in what ifs, but I'll just talk about what actually happened. I never really believed that it was like a legitimate career that I could have. Bringing it back to this shame thing, I think what probably happened is they started getting really successful together. And even though I was still there and we were still working together, they were clearly becoming the front and center duo of our team. I was, fortunate enough to be able to still work with them, and they were getting more opportunities, and they were bringing us along, for the ride, and to work with them. And so many of my opportunities have come from the fact that they built this thing together. And for years, I was, to be quite honest, and this didn't, when I say this didn't cause any rifts within us at all. It was all really great, and we always had fun. But the thing that I was always dealing with was the fact that I was probably a bit resentful of them, because they were getting all this success and I wasn't. Like that was just how I was feeling. And because of that, and I'm just like ashamed of saying it now, but because of that, for so long, when they were at their most successful, when they were like the biggest radio show in Australian history, I couldn't be happy for them. Like Hamish was my best friend. I was his best man at his wedding. And I struggled to be happy for him and congratulate him and be genuinely excited when he was achieving these amazing things, because I was resentful. And I just held on to that for so long. And
how did you reconcile that in your own mind? Thanks for sharing that as well, by the way. But how did you reconcile that in your mind? Were you saying to yourself, well, it's not happening to me because I'm actually not that talented, or is it just I'm unlucky, or is it that could have been me in that position, or what were you telling yourself?
I used to think, so the shame, this is bringing it back to the shame, I believed, with all my heart at the time, I believed that they didn't have me on their radio show or have me on the thing because I believed that they didn't think I was funny enough to be working with them.
Wow.
And I didn't believe that I did believe that they thought that they would be able to be more successful without me. But it took me a long time to realize that I can do anything I want to do. I just had to find that belief.
When you told me that, I remember it's quite an emotional discussion because it is like that's a huge strain on a relationship, like any relationship, that kind of resentment. But when it's your best mate, who you've been best mates with since you were, how old were you when you first met?
We were like 14, 15.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think about my best mates from school since I was 14, 15 and we've never worked together. So there's never been that. But I remember you explaining that to me and it was quite an emotional discussion. And I said to you, you need to tell Hamish this. Like, you need to tell Hamish your story because I'm positive, like, his story will be the thing that I suppose sets you free from those thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure his story is very much like, no, this is what we're doing. That's why we're doing it, and all sort of makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
And I know that I think it was over the summer holidays. So it was like 10 months ago. I said to you, you need to talk to Hamish about that. And you didn't miss, like, in a heartbeat, you said, I do. I really need to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And that was 10 months ago. And I'd say to you, hey, have you chatted to Hamish? Have you talked to Hamish? And you kept saying, no, I haven't yet. No, there will be a right time for this. There'll definitely be a conversation that we'll have. And I kept asking you, have you chatted to Hamish? And then we realised we were going to start talking about this in the podcast, and it became a bit more urgent. You had to speak to Hamish.
Yeah.
And I know you chatted to him.
I wanted to talk to him about it first before I talked about it here.
Yeah. And you've since had that conversation with Hamish. So you've told him your side of the story. I don't know how the conversation went. I know you chatted to him recently, though.
It was amazing. It really was. I was dreading it. I was really nervous for some reason. Just to talk like that with someone that I've never. I mean, you have those chats every now and again with your close friends, but this was such a personal thing that I'd never really articulated properly, except to you, really. But it was great, and I told him all that stuff about how I was feeling, and that I struggled to be happy for him when he was doing incredible things. I would always sort of, I guess I would always like play it down and go like, oh yeah, it's great. No, I heard that's awesome. And I would never listen to the show.
Really?
Yep.
Isn't it a radio show?
Yep. Yeah, never. And
it was bloody good.
It's bloody good.
You would have loved it.
Like I've heard a lot of it. Obviously, but at the time, I found it really hard to engage with it.
Yeah, of course.
Because I guess it represented the thing that it represented my shame, I guess. The story that was not true, but I believed it was.
So you told Hamish all that? Yep.
And I mean, he's my best friend. So it's not like he's in the radio station going like, well, we can't get Ryan on. We can't have Ryan on. He's not good enough. Like that's just, when I think about that now, it's like, that's crazy. Like he would never, ever say that. He doesn't, I believe that he enjoys what I do. And,
in fact, he's most likely probably one of your biggest fans.
We laugh together all the time, obviously. We're like best mates. But it's funny what happens in those scenarios, and it's probably been one of the biggest sticking points for just me personally, but then also just it's been this unspoken thing with him and I for so long, and I mean, like he's just an incredible guy, and it feels weird that I would have really believed that, and not that I ever believed that he was like being intentionally leaving me out or anything, but I just feel so annoyed with myself that I wasn't able to celebrate them. Or I mean, Andy and I are really close as well, but Hamish and I have been close for we're just old friends, And the fact that I wasn't able to really celebrate him and be there for him when that would have been a really stressful time, no doubt, like a really exciting time as well. But I just didn't allow myself to be there for him, probably.
Without divulging the details of the conversation too much, was he surprised to hear you say that?
Not really.
He wasn't?
Not really. I mean, he was a little bit to hear it because, of course, I didn't give him warning that I was going to be bringing it up. So I guess he was a little bit surprised from the point of view of like, well, this is a heavy conversation all of a sudden. But he wasn't, because he could, of course, sense that. I mean, it's weird. It'd be weird if your best mate was not giving you high fives and being really excited for you when you're doing these incredible things that you dreamed about since you were in school. You just wouldn't feel supported in the way that you would want to be. But of course, he can't go, hey, mate, why aren't you celebrating me more? Like, you can't say that. So I think he was probably just a little bit confused, but also, I mean, he's very intuitive guy as well, so he would also probably have a little bit of an inkling of what was maybe going on, but didn't want to presume and be condescending.
As blokes in this country, we don't really sit down and talk those things out.
Well, I mean, also I think, I think he probably, I know that he felt like he would have sounded condescending to kind of approach me and go like, hey, I'm having all this success and you're not, so just want to say, it's all good.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I
kind of appreciate that he didn't do that, because at the time I wouldn't have taken it well, I don't think.
Yeah. How did it feel having had that chat? Because on the last episode, 2 episodes ago on this podcast, I spoke about how my sister and I had this kind of awkward energy from unspoken stuff that had gone back to the age of when I was 6 and she was 3. Like,
yeah.
And we hadn't talked about it till very recently. And we had this conversation and it just felt incredible. And I have this urge at the moment. My sister lives in LA, but I get this urge every day to pick up the phone and give her a buzz. And I haven't really had that urge. I mean, I always want to speak to her, but I have an urge just to speak to her all the time. It was just it was the most incredible thing to do.
Yeah, wow.
How did it feel for you? I'm not saying, it's a bit different with Hamish being your best mate. You probably speak to him all the time anyway, but how did it feel for you walking away from that? I mean, you called me the other night and you were buzzing and you didn't tell me the details of the conversation, but you were just buzzing from the chat you had with him.
Well, I think I just felt relieved because it had been that thing hanging over me for a long time. Ever since we spoke about it, I was like, because I really wanted to, but I didn't really know how to do it. And those conversations, it's always hardest to just start those conversations. Like, starting is the hardest. Like, once you're in it, it's kind of.
So what did you do did you go somewhere together or did you?
Well, it was I just don't know if I would have done it if we weren't doing this podcast. Like, if I wasn't going to be doing it, telling the story publicly like this, which I'm only doing because I feel like it's something that I maybe would have benefited from hearing a long time ago. But if I hadn't been doing this, I don't know if I would have, because I'd become so accustomed to just dealing with it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's just the way it is. And so just like, nah, it's probably too uncomfortable or too confronting, daunting to open that Pandora's box, because I don't know what's going to happen. I'll just prefer to stay in this safe zone as opposed to confronting that fear.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
So glad.
Yeah. What the podcast has really reminded me of is the importance of just having the courage to have conversations with people that you love. If there's something awkward that sits there between the two of you, find a way, whether it's writing them a letter or going out for dinner or a beer or whatever it is, and just initiating the conversation so you can just get through it, because this sounds like so much of a cliche, and I hate saying this, but life's too short to, you'll look back on your friendship with Hamish, when you're 80, 90 years old and go, oh, there was that period of 10 or 15 years where I felt a little bit, I couldn't quite enjoy his success, but now I just love sitting back and enjoying everything he does because he's a genius, and I get to have a front row seat of that, and how lucky am I,
Totally. I mean, I have those feelings all the time, and I mean, it has been amazing watching what he's done. And that's why it was just I've just felt so annoyed at myself for so long, and just angry at myself because I couldn't, when you should be doing something, but you can't quite bring yourself to do it, even though you know it's the right thing and you actually feel it. But this resentment was just like holding me back. It's like I didn't want to it's like because he was getting so much praise and success, it felt like I was like, I don't want to acknowledge that. I don't know. I don't know. It's a strange thing, and it's definitely a jealousy thing and an envy thing. I don't know if it's like a status thing or if it's like I don't know.
That's one of our psychological needs is status.
Yeah. Yep.
And that could speak to that point. But well, I hope that now that you've had that conversation with him, you feel more free to enjoy his genius, I guess.
Yeah. I'm just terrified now that he's going to listen to this. I'm just like, shit, what have I said? What am I doing? This is a nightmare. Delete it. Oh, God.
So just going back to the start of this conversation, you talked about your purpose, and you felt like your purpose was to be the funniest man in the world,
Yeah.
or have the funniest TV show.
Yep.
And so no matter what success you were having, you found it hard to be happy because it wasn't that. You weren't achieving that.
Yeah, because that was the thing. And so when I met with Ben Crow, he encouraged me to think about my purpose, like I said, and I sort of thought about that and tried to think about, because part of it, as you'll see if you look at the link that we will definitely remember to put up this time, is this sort of, it tries to get you to think about what you love doing and then how it helps others.
Because this is huge for a lot of people, establishing and articulating a purpose.
Yeah, and I'd heard it a lot before, like I'd heard people talk about purpose, but I never really knew how to get to it or really what the focus needed to be or what the benefit really was. But then when I watched this and read a little bit about it, it's all about what do you do, who do you do it for, and how do you help those people by doing what you do. That's essentially what you need to think about. So when I thought about that, I thought, well, I love making things, and I love making them for people who like comedy or want to laugh or want to feel good, like you did watching my Instagram videos. And so I tried to distill that down to a sentence. And what I came up with, it could change, it could be a work in progress, but it feels right for now, which is to spread joy through creativity and inspire others to do the same.
Amazing.
So, yeah, so I just thought, well, that sort of feels like if I could do
You
that
said that again, sorry,
to spread joy through creativity
Yep.
and inspire others to do the same.
Amazing. Yep.
So, I mean, I like making things that are unique or different in some way, not necessarily always funny, and people will tell you that, but always hopefully in some way creative. I just love, even when someone else does something like seriously creative or different or unique, I get so excited to see something new. And so if I can do things, the dream is if I can make something, whether it be on Instagram or on TV, and someone enjoys it and then thinks, I'm going to make something like that or something that I want to do, then that is, because then they share it with other people and so on and so on. Like that would be the greatest thing. Now that I have that, I'm still trying to get my head around it, because of course I still fall into the trap of wanting to do things for praise or wanting to do things for the purpose of getting recognition or likes or comments or my parents' approval, whatever it is. But if I can try and keep bringing it back to that purpose, then it kind of doesn't really matter what I'm making, whether it be a 15-second video on Instagram that takes 15 seconds to make, or a huge 8-episode TV show that takes a year to make. What I've sort of, I guess, learned and what I'm trying to get really comfortable with is the fact that whether I'm doing either of those things, I can still achieve my purpose.
Absolutely.
And I think for so long, I didn't have that. And for so long, I just had my eye on this TV show. Just wanted to be the funniest man in the world, Emmy, variety cover, all that stuff, which is just all recognition. And because I wanted that and wasn't getting it, I was just so blinkered to that and couldn't enjoy all these things I was doing along the way. So when when you said before that, we met up and you thought, oh God, he's doing all these things. If I was doing all these things, I'd be so happy. My life would be perfect.
It was quite literally the thought I had of like seeing all the stuff that you do on Instagram and the shows that you make and the people you hang out with. I was just thinking, My gosh, that would be the most amazing life. Like, that must be so awesome.
Yeah, and
And it is,
yeah.
but you weren't feeling it.
Well, look, the last thing I want to do is sound ungrateful, and the fact that I wasn't enjoying all those things. All those things are, believe me, feel very fortunate and lucky to be in the situation I'm in, and I certainly don't want to whinge about it in any way. But it's all about perspective, and I do the same thing to so many people. I look at other people's lives, other comedians or actors or whoever, and just look at what they've done, the things they're making, and I just think, God, you just must be having the best time. What a great life that must be, making all those things, working with those people. But then the more I speak to different people about what their life is really like, or I hear a story about what they're going through, or the fact that, yeah, that show was really good, but it took me 4 years to get up, and in that time I couldn't get out of bed. Whatever it might be, I make the same mistakes about people all the time. And I feel like lots of people do it as well, where you envy someone's life, but in reality their life isn't as enviable as you think it is. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this and talk about it, is because for the people like you who thought, well, he must be just having a great time. I am, but I was so blinkered to this thing. I wasn't enjoying any of the other things I was doing along the way because they all felt like a means to the end. So now, I guess, with my new perspective and the way I try and look at life now and the things that I make, is if I can just forget about where I'm headed and forget about what is coming up later or what show I may or may not ever make. Today I'm doing this podcast, which is amazing that I get to do this. And this is spreading joy through creativity. Like, I'm doing it right
living
now.
Your purpose, yeah.
I'm doing it right now, and I can do it again in an hour if I want, just by getting on Instagram. The big thing I've learned is that I don't need that TV show, that big, shiny TV show. I don't need to be on the Emmy stage to achieve my purpose now. I can do it in my bedroom, or I can do it in any country in the world at any time. And I think, and I've learned so much about that, and it just makes every day so much more enjoyable because I can enjoy the things as opposed to wishing I was somewhere else, or wishing this project was a bit bigger, or wishing, it's only a web series that I'm doing. It'd be better if this was a full TV series. Oh, well, I'll do this and hopefully someone will see it and then I'll get the TV show. And if I get the TV show, then I'll be happy.
Yeah. So have you found yourself enjoying other people's success more?
No, I absolutely. That was such an easy, dumb joke. No, definitely. And Hamish being the top of the list, I feel like ever since I've realised this, and I realised that, I am doing what I want to do. I'm completely content with what I'm doing now. And I don't have that resentment to, well, not even my friends, but also people I don't know. I feel like I'm now more able to look at what they're doing and go, oh, that's great. I'm really excited for you, because I genuinely am.
When your purpose is about spreading joy to other people, it doesn't matter. I mean, really, if other people are doing that, that makes you even happier. Like, more people are doing this. This is great.
Exactly. And I could only get there. Unfortunately, I could only really get there for myself once I was happy with where I was at. And that goes up and down, of course. Like, I'm not like in this constant state of bliss. But to have that purpose and to have that, to know what that shame was and to sort of acknowledge that and to call it what it is, has, I mean, quite literally just completely changed my life. And it just feels so much lighter on my shoulders.
Yeah. It's been a great, from a very selfish point of view, it's been a great journey for me, because I used to sit there watching your videos on Instagram all the time when I didn't know who you were and love them. And they made me so happy. And we've said this many times, but it helped me. I mean, I can't do the job that I do if I'm not happy. Like, it's impossible to get up and pretend in front of 300, 400 kids. So I'd watch your videos, they make me feel happy. And then they stopped. The videos stopped.
Yeah.
And knowing you now, it's because knowing your story now, I know that you were questioning why you were doing it. And you had this. Anyway, so then we catch up and then chat about a few things. I put you in touch with Ben, and then through Ben, you've established this purpose, which is to spread joy.
Yeah.
And the videos start again.
Well,
And I'm sitting
yeah.
there and go, well, that's a great result for me.
I mean, they have slowed down a bit again now.
I
But
have noticed that, yeah.
But there was like that, literally that week, you could go back and look at my Instagram. There's a week where I did like a live Instagram broadcast that went for about 20 minutes of
It was
me.
the best 20 minutes of Instagram. I wish if that should be a Netflix show, just that 20 minutes.
God, it's a pretty strange show.
It's
It was
very
so
amusing.
weird. But I kind of felt in that because it was that. I did a few other videos. And it was an incredible feeling because I felt like I was not doing this for myself. Like I feel like I had to do it.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what I wanted in that. I mean, that week I was kind of high on this new purpose, and yeah, I couldn't. I just didn't keep it up for whatever reason. But I was so inspired that week by Ben and from what you said that I just like, well, I just have to do things. I have to.
You unleashed 2 years of no Instagram in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, but it was good, and it was that was the thing I was feeling. It was like this feeling like I need to do it.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, and it's really just to mention it quickly because I think it's really, really important for people to understand this. One of the things that you have done, I suggested this too, but I said you should go and see a psychologist. And you did that. A very dear friend of mine, Maria, and she's a wonderful, wonderful woman.
Yeah.
And I love that you've done that and you're still doing that. Is that right? You're still catching up with her?
Yep.
Or catching up. You're still seeing her professionally?
Yeah, I pay to catch up with her.
Yeah. And I love that because I think so many people think you go to see a psychologist if you have a mental illness. You don't have a mental illness. You are just very interested in being, without sounding too cliched, the best version of yourself or a better version of yourself or happier or whatever. And that's what you've done, and it's been huge for you.
Well, it's the realization that it's not black or white. You're not either mentally healthy or mentally ill. Like it's not like extreme, and it's not like if you're healthy, then you just don't go, and if you're mentally ill, then you have to go. There's so much middle ground, and for me, what I treat those sessions as is a way to have like a one-on-one lecture about psychology, and I'm the subject. And it's just so fascinating. I mean, I got very lucky in the sense that you were able to recommend her and get me in to see her. Whereas I know that for a lot of people, you have to do a lot of trial and error. You have to wait. You have to meet with a few people.
It's like dating.
It's like dating, yeah. Till you find the person that you like. But it's great, and yes, I have good weeks and I have bad weeks, and sometimes I'll go in there and I'll think I've got nothing to talk about. Like nothing. I'm feeling pretty good today. Like it's sunny. I'm getting lots of work done. Everything's great, and I just think, well, this is going to be a waste of money. Why am I going in here? But they're the ones that are the best sessions, because those are the sessions where you really drill back.
I love it. Yeah.
Back into like when you're a kid, family, and they're the times where you really learn stuff about yourself. It can be something that happened so long ago, and you can't always get there on your own. Sometimes you need that person to talk to you about it and help you get there, who has no skin in the game. But the good thing about speaking to an expert is that they can give you actually good advice, and advice that is grounded in something better. Oh God!
I saw a look of panic in your eye. Then.
It was like the
I've got
car's
no
like
words.
about to get over the hill, and it's like nah, and then the car just rolls back. No, help me out here, Hugh. So what I'm trying to say is, you take over.
Okay,
Is it's good to speak to a psychologist because they can give advice which is more intellectual or more
Well, friends are great at listening, and they can sometimes offer advice.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a takeaway from one of the takeaways from this episode, which I really want people to have a think about, is we all should be doing work on ourselves, and psychologists are the most incredible resource, and we should be seeing them. I mean, I'd say it again. You don't have to be mentally unwell to go and see a psych. It should be like just getting a checkup with the doctor. You just go and get a checkup, and then you watch what happens. They'll uncover some stuff you need to work on.
Yeah, and it can be confronting. You have to be kind of ready to be open enough to do it. But after I'd done it like 3 or 4 sessions, I was like, well, everyone should be seeing someone. Every single person, no matter how good you think your life is. I just feel like it can only, even if you're not helping yourself, you might be helping your friend who's struggling or a family member that is struggling. To get advice on how to help them is like almost just as beneficial.
I think everything you've just said is going to be very helpful to a lot of people who that'll resonate with. Not people sitting back going, I'm also friends with Hamish Blake, and I feel like, why wasn't that me? But
That's my story.
yeah. But a lot of people will relate to jealousy, insecurity, feeling like we're not worthy of love and affection, all that kind of stuff. We all feel that. Everyone has shame about something, and for you to be able to talk about your shame and how you've sort of unlocked that, I think is an unbelievably courageous, but also a very important thing to have done for so many people who will be right now, I hope, thinking about things in their own life that they possibly, the unfair stories that we've probably told ourselves about various things. And I think it's a really important thing you've just done. So,
well, I mean, in all honesty, the reason I'm doing it is because of you. And sorry, it's just that
I'll give you a hug, but there's lots of microphones in the way.
yeah, like it really is like I feel like my life has completely changed. And it's because of so many things I've read, but the way that you kind of gave me the opportunity to confront all this and to I don't know, I don't even know how to say it, but it's been hugely influential. And it's just been big. Been a big thing.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So thank you.
I think I don't know where to go from there. Thank you.
Play my shitty voicemail at the end. It's going to be weird now. I don't know what I'm going to do for that.
What I'd planned to do, I'd sort of planned to finish this kind of episode by thanking you for doing something which I think I can't even begin to explain how courageous it is to do what you've done, because I mean, it's a weird one for me because I've always been a very big fan of yours. And so when we became friends, I was like, fuck, I can't believe I'm friends with Ryan Shelton. It's amazing. And then when you told me that story, I went home and thought it was so powerful for me. And people have been at me for years to do a podcast, and I've kept saying no because I thought I don't have any good ideas. And I thought you sharing your story gave me the idea of why don't we get people to share their stories, to be happy to be vulnerable. And then I remember saying to you, so my idea is that we do this podcast together, and you said, it's a great idea to do that, but you don't need me. Like, I'm happy to sit in the background and I'll help direct you, but you don't need me to do this. And now having heard you tell your story about like you don't feel like you're worthy, it kind of makes a bit more sense. Mm-hmm. But there was a bit more going on there as well. And I said, mate, I think we should do it together. Like I don't want this to be a serious podcast that needs your comedic brilliance to sort of lighten it up a bit. And you kept, the amount of times you pushed back and said, no, I don't think you need me on it. I want to be part of it. I want to help you, but I don't want to be on it. Yeah. The amount of times you said no, but I kept asking you because I just felt like you would add so much, and you have. Like I listened to the episodes a fair bit, and my favourite bits are your bits. Like when you're talking, that's my favourite part because they're so good. But I just want to acknowledge the courage you had to do this, because it would be like if you said to me, it'd be like if you called me and said, hey, I want to do a comedy podcast and I want you to be on it. I would say no, because I'm not a comedian and I'm not that funny. So I would just say no. But I've asked you to come onto a podcast and talk about mental health, well-being, all this kind of stuff. And as a comedian, I think that takes enormous courage, because we've had chats about people we want to have on this podcast, and we've been going through both our contacts and, sports people, yep, no worries, musicians, yep. And then we've talked about comedians, and you just said, we can't really get comedians to do it because they play a character and they can't really reveal who they actually are, because that's potential, they'll see that as career suicide or whatever. But you've said, no, I'm going to do it. And I think in doing that, you have helped so many people. It has been, working with you has been the highlight of my year. And I cannot thank you enough for having the courage to do this, because I think you've helped so many people.
Yeah, well, thanks, you. I'm so glad I've done this, and it took a lot of I really didn't want to do it because I just didn't think I was like, well, who the hell am I? Like, why? I really just didn't think I was, I had the I don't know what's the word, the right. I didn't think I had the right to talk about mental
That's
health.
what you told me many a phone call.
Yeah, I was like, well, why should I be doing that? The only reason that I'm doing it is because I was like, well, at least I can do it with you. I mean, you're the one who knows what you're talking about. I'm genuinely interested in it, so I can genuinely be curious and ask questions. But yeah, I'm just so grateful. Like this is, nothing I've ever done has felt as meaningful as this, and to get the messages that you pass on, that you send to me, that you get from people that contact you, is just like, I've never seen it. Nothing I've ever done has had, well, at least that I know of, has had the impact that, due to the work that you do and the impact that you have on people, the fact that I can be a part of it on this just feels great. It just feels really, God, I've learned a lot from doing this. And I mean, I feel like this is like the last episode we'll ever do, but we're going to do more. Yeah. We're going to do more.
It does feel like a sign-off, doesn't it?
Anyway, so for all those 5 episodes we did, send in the awards. So thank you. Thanks for convincing me. You and my girlfriend spent a lot of time convincing me to do it. So
yeah, well, you're a natural. So I guess that concludes season 1. We've lined up some terrific guests for season 2. I'm not going to announce who they are just in case they cancel.
Yes, in case they pull out.
But we're very excited with the people who have actually contacted us, having heard the first few episodes, and have said they want to be part of it. So very exciting. And I think a nice way to finish is probably to thank Josh, my little brother, who we chatted about this for, and he's right here, so it's also a bit awkward, but he's sitting here. But you've taught me a lot about being thorough in preparation, because as soon as you said you're in, I was like, yep, let's do one tomorrow. And we chatted for a long time about what the format was going to be, and then we actually needed someone to actually bring the episodes together. And Josh spoke to him about it. He said, yep, I'd love to be a part of it. And he has spent I've watched, he does a lot of work with us at Resilience Project as well. I've never seen him so busy in his career. He has spent, we talk for hours, and then Josh has to put it together. Especially today. And Josh has to pull it together into episodes. And what Josh does so well is he captures emotion and he tells stories so beautifully with his work. And I think he deserves an enormous amount of credit for this first series, and for me to work with my brother as well has been an incredible highlight. It really has been. So
for me to work with your brother has been a big highlight too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've enjoyed everything that's come with working with the two of you. So, Josh, thank you so much for everything you've done. Feel very privileged to work with you.
He just gave a thumbs up.
He did give a thumbs up. Yeah. And he's saying, wind this up.
Double thumbs up. He's also saying this is a lot to edit. Stop talking. The Imperfects season 2 will be coming to you soon. Well, that's what I'm saying. I haven't cleared this with Josh yet, who has to do all the work for it. But we look forward to bringing you that season 2 as soon as possible. Thanks, you.
Thank you, Ryan.
See you soon.
Bye, mate.
Can I be a fascination moment? 'Cause you hold the feeling.
It's Ryan. Let's not release that. Let's definitely not put that out. That was wow, too vulnerable. I don't know what I was thinking. That was too much. I know it's a bit different than what we had planned, but I think definitely let's do an episode. But I've got other stories I can tell. They're not quite as full on. like stories from when I was on Rove. I could tell stories when I was on Rove. There's some really interesting things. I could drop some celebrity names and stuff. So just the more I thought about it, just no way, no way should that be heard by anyone. So just give me a call and let me know that you've received this message, and to confirm that we're definitely not releasing this to the public, because that would be. Yeah, that's just a no. Okay, Merry Christmas, you. It's Ryan Shelton from your podcast. Okay, thank you, mate. Bye-bye.
To call back, press 22. To replay message, press 1. To reply.
If this episode has triggered anything for you around mental health, we strongly recommend Lifeline on 131114. The Imperfects is brought to you by the Resilience Project. Produced by Ryan Shelton, Hugh and Josh Van Kylenberg. A very, very special thank you also to No Mono for generously allowing us to use Keep On as the theme song for this podcast.